When they hit the shore they lay down for some time when they suddenly heard someone laughing, so Ouyang Feng jumped up and followed the laughter, and so coincidentally met Ouyang Ke, who had just fallen into the trap. Ouyang Feng tried to rush forward to save him. He managed to pull him several feet away, but Ouyang Kan's legs were crushed and he fainted from the pain. Ouyang Feng was suspicious and looked around but did not find any more danger, so he went to check on his nephew. He felt that he was still breathing, so he tried to push the rock, but it did not budge an inch. He then knelt down and tried again with both hands and grunted. Though his strength was tremendous, how could he move a 1,000-pound rock? He bent down and Ouyang Ke opened his eyes and shouted, "Uncle!" Ouyang Feng said, "You'll have to bear with it for a while." He hugged him up and pulled him, but Ouyang Ke screamed and fainted again. The rock had pinned his legs underneath, so this pull would only worsen his pain but not free him. Ouyang Feng was startled. Go Jing held Huang Rong's hand and asked, "Where's Master?" Huang Rong pointed, saying, "Over there." Go Jing heard that his master was all right and was elated, wanting her to lead him there, but heard Ouyang Kan's scream, so he could not bear it and said to Ouyang Feng, "I'll help you." Huang Rong tugged his sleeve, saying, "Let's go see the master, ignore this bad guy." Ouyang Feng did not know that this was a trap set up by her, as he saw the rock tumble down and it was impossible for anyone to lift it up the cliff, but when he heard Huang Rong stop Go Jing, his anger flared up, and then he heard that Hong Shigong was here, so he was startled, thinking, "That beggar took one of my palms and was also poisoned by my snake, yet he is not dead. But even then he should be 90 dead, why should I fear him?" He saw Go Jing and Huang Rong about to leave, so he knelt down again and pretended to push the rock and waited for them to turn away before saying, "Don't worry, I'll save you. From now just concentrate on circulating your ki to protect your heart and take it that those legs are not yours." He then followed them and saw them holding each other's waist and talked romantically. He was flabbergasted and thought, "If I don't torture you till you're worse off than dead, I'm not West poison." Huang Rong took Go Jing to the cave opening. Go Jing launched himself in and shouted, "Master!" He then saw that Hong Shigong's eyes were closed and there was no blood in his face. He had been insulted by Ouyang Ke and his injury relapsed. Huang Rong quickly undid his outer gown while Go Jing massaged his limbs. Hong Shigong opened his eyes and saw Go Jing, so he was naturally very happy and smiled, saying in a low voice, "Jinger, you're here too." Go Jing was about to reply when a rough voice cut in from behind, "Old beggar, so am I." Go Jing turned around to block the entrance. Huang Rong snatched her master's bamboo stick and stood beside Go Jing. Ouyang Feng laughed, "Old beggar, come out, if not I'm going in." Go Jing and Huang Rong looked at each other, thinking, even if it costs our lives, we must not let him maul us, master. Ouyang Feng laughed and stepped in. Go Jing stepped forward to block. Ouyang Feng moved aside to evade his palm strike and went to his right, then a bamboo stick flew over and made a circle, yet seemed to aim for 3 separate spots at the same time, making it difficult to deal with. He waved his left hand up and swept his leg to force his opponent away. He did not expect Huang Rong's stick to hit the center of the circle. Ouyang Feng was surprised and jumped back, looking carefully. Huang Rong was using the dog-beating skill and managed to force her stronger opponent backwards, so she was feeling proud. Ouyang Feng did not expect this girl to learn the old beggar's wonderful rod skill. He snorted and advanced again to hit her bamboo stick. Huang Rong executed the stick skill she just learned and poked, hit, circled and flew around, and although she could not injure him, she managed to evade 7 to 8 of his moves continuously. Go Jing was shocked and happy and kept cheering, "Good Ronger, good rod skill." He then attacked with a fist and palm from the side. Ouyang Feng shouted in anger and knelt down, launching both palms out. Even before the palms came, the palm wind caused the dust to fly. Go Jing saw that the strikes were very powerful and was afraid that Huang Rong might get injured if she took the strike, so he hurriedly pushed her aside and they managed to evade the strike together. Aoyang Feng stepped 2 steps forward and struck out with both palms again. His attack was terribly strong and fought to a draw with Hong Shigong on Peach Blossom Island a few days ago. Go Jing and Huang Rong were far from his match and were forced to retreat step by step. Aoyang Feng rushed into the cave and flipped his palm, hitting the stone wall and causing bits of stone to drop off. He brought the other palm up above Hong Shigong's head and held it there to observe him. Huang Rong said, "My master saved your life, yet you want to hurt him, aren't you ashamed?" Aoyang Feng pushed Hong Shigong's chest slightly and felt his chest muscle contract, showing that his martial abilities were really lost, so he was secretly happy and lifted him up, saying, "If you rescue my nephew, I'll spare the beggar's life." Huang Rong said, "Heaven released the rock to pin him down, you saw that yourself, who could save him? Try any more tricks and heaven will crush you with a rock too." Go Jing saw that Aoyang Feng had raised Hong Shigong higher and prepared to throw him down but doubted that he would really do it. Still he was worried and quickly said, "Put him down and we'll go save your nephew." Aoyang Feng missed his nephew and was very eager to rush down, but he kept his face impassive and put Hong Shigong down very slowly. Huang Rong said, "Helping him is not difficult, but let's make an agreement." Aoyang Feng said, "What do you want?" Huang Rong said, "After we save your nephew, you must not harm the 3 of us while we're here on this island." Aoyang Feng thought, "My nephew and I are afraid of water. If we want to get back I may need to depend on these 3 people." He nodded his head, saying, "Okay, I'll not kill the 3 of you now, but I can't promise you anything after we leave this island." Huang Rong said, "When the time comes, even if you leave us alone we'll come after you. Another thing is that my father had betrothed me to him, and you saw that for yourself. If your nephew bothers me again, you're worse than a pig or dog." Aoyang Feng spat, saying, "Okay, that only applies on this island too. Once we leave, we'll see then." Huang Rong smiled, saying, "Finally, although we'll try our best to help you, we're not the gods. If fate has decreed that your nephew must die, you can't blame us." Aoyang Feng said, "If my nephew dies, you too can forget about living. Little girl, shut up and go save my nephew." He then ran to where the rock was. Go Jing was about to follow when Huang Rong said, "Brother Jing, later when he uses his strength to push the rock, you can strike his back when he least expects it." Go Jing said, "We must honor our word. Let's save his nephew first then try to avenge master." Huang Rong sighed and knew that it was useless to get him to backstab someone. For the past 2 days she had thought that he had died in the sea. Now that she was with him again her heart exploded with happiness, so even if Go Jing made any unreasonable demands, she would just listen to him. Moreover his actions were of an honorable gentleman's, so she smiled gently and said, "Okay, you're a saint, I'll listen to you." They ran to the cliff and heard Aoyang K groaning in the distance. Aoyang Feng shouted, "Hurry up!" They went over and stood beside him and the 3 pairs of hands pressed the rock together. Aoyang Feng said, "Up!" and they pushed at the same time. The rock moved an inch before slamming down again. Aoyang K screamed and his eyes rolled up. Aoyang Feng was shocked and immediately supported him, but felt that his breathing was weak, and to bear with the pain he bit through his tongue, filling his mouth with blood. Even with Aoyang Feng's outstanding martial arts, he was powerless to move the rock. Now he had made it worse for his nephew and also buried his shoe in the sand. Aoyang Feng bent down to pick his shoe and was shocked again. The tide was rising slowly and was already reaching the rock. Aoyang Feng said urgently, "Little girl, if you want your master to live, you'd better save my nephew faster." Huang Rong was already thinking, but this rock was enormous and there was no one else to help him. How could they move it away? She had come up with more than 10 ideas in a flash, but none worked. Then when she heard Aoyang Feng, she said, "If master weren't injured, we could easily move this rock with his tremendous strength." Now she threw up her hands to indicate that it was useless. Though this sentence was said out of anger, Aoyang Feng thought, Maybe it's really fate. If the old beggar wasn't injured, with his chivalrous nature, he would definitely help. Who knew that when I injured him, it was as good as killing my own nephew? Although Awang K was his nephew, he actually had an affair with his sister-in-law and he was in fact his son. Awang Feng was usually cold-hearted, but now he felt regretful. He turned his head and saw the water rising in by another few feet. Awang K yelled, "Uncle, kill me with one strike. I can't take it anymore." Awang Feng took out a sharp knife and gritted his teeth, saying, "You bear with it for a while, even without your legs you can still live." He went forth with the intention of severing his nephew's legs. Awang Feng exclaimed, "No, no, uncle, just stab me to death." Awang Feng said angrily, "With so many years under my guidance, how could you be so useless?" Awang K hugged his chest and tried to bear with the pain, not daring to say another word. Awang Feng saw that the rock pinned him up to the waist. Even if he amputated his legs, he may not live, so he hesitated. Huang Rong saw that the uncle and nephew had nothing to say and were both looking dejected, so her heart went soft and she thought of how her father moved the rocks on Peach Blossom Island. She exclaimed, "Wait! I've got a way, but I'm not sure if it works." Awang Feng was elated and said, "Good lady, just say it." Huang Rong was thinking, "Now that you want to save your nephew, you're not calling me names anymore but good lady." She smiled and said, "Okay, you must listen to me now. Let's cut some tree bark and make a rope strong enough to lift this rock." Awang Feng said, "Who's going to pull the rope?" Huang Rong said, "Pull like a sail." Awang Feng immediately understood and said, "Yes, yes, just like that." Go Jing heard Huang Rong talk about using tree bark but did not question her. Instead he just pulled out his dagger and began cutting off some tree bark. Awang Feng and Huang Rong followed his lead and within a short time, they had cut many strips of tree bark. Awang Feng was cutting the bark when he looked at his nephew and suddenly exclaimed, "Don't cut anymore." Huang Rong curiously asked, "What? Why not?" Awang Feng pointed at his nephew and Go Jing and Huang Rong looked over. They saw the tide rising faster and had already submerged half his body. He would be drowned even before they had gathered enough material. Awang K was motionless in the water. Huang Rong said, "Don't fret. Just cut." Although Awang Feng was a monster, he meekly obeyed her. Huang Rong jumped down the tree and ran to Awang K and used several big stones to support him. This way his nose was still above the water. Awang K said in a low voice, "Miss Huang, thanks. Even if I can't live, I'll die content knowing that you tried to save me." Huang Rong felt apologetic and said, "Don't thank me. Do you know that I was the one who laid this trap?" Awang K said, "Don't speak so loudly. If my uncle hears it, he won't let you off. I knew long ago. To die in your hands would leave me with no regrets." Huang Rong sighed and thought, although this person is irksome, he treats me nicely. She returned to the tree and began binding the bark. She joined 3 together to form a thin rope and then 6 ropes together to form a thick rope and again joined several thick ropes together to form a massive rope. Awang Feng continuously cut the tree bark while Huang Rong unceasingly connected the ropes. Although they were fast, the tide was faster and even before the massive rope was half complete, the water had risen up to Awang Kan's mouth, and soon only his nose was left sticking out. Awang Feng jumped down and said, "You can go. I want to speak with my nephew. You have tried your best and I appreciate it." His voice was heavy and seemed resigned to the situation. Go Jing saw that it was hopeless and went off together with Huang Rong. They walked several meters and Huang Rong whispered, "Let's go behind the rock and listen to what he says." Go Jing said, "This doesn't concern us. Besides, he would discover us." Huang Rong said, "Once his nephew dies, he'll try to harm Master. So we must keep ourselves informed to be prepared. If we're found out, we'll just say that we have come to send his nephew off." Go Jing nodded. They turned around the corner and went behind the trees, stealthily creeping back behind the rock. They heard Ouyang Feng say, "Go in peace. I know what you're thinking. You want old heretic Huang to marry his daughter to you, but I fear I can't grant your wish." Go Jing and Huang Rong were startled, thinking, "He's about to die. Why did Ouyang Feng say that?" As they heard more, they became angrier. Ouyang Feng was actually saying, "I'll go kill that girl and bury her with you. Everyone dies. If you can't live with her, then you can die with her and have no regrets." Ouyang Kang's mouth was beneath the water and he could not speak. Huang Rong took Go Jing's hand and they left stealthily. After the corner, Go Jing angrily said, "Let's confront that old poisonous thing." Huang Rong said, "With him we must compare wits, not strength." Go Jing asked, "How?" Huang Rong said, "In thinking." As they walked near the canyon, she saw some reeds. Huang Rong thought of something and said, "If he weren't so evil, I could save his nephew." Go Jing quickly asked, "How?" Huang Rong took out her knife and cut a hollow reed and put it to her mouth, breathing through it for a while. Go Jing laughed, "Ah, this is really a good idea. How did you think of that? Should we save him?" Huang Rong pouted, "Of course not. That old poisonous thing wants to kill me, just let him do it. I'm not scared." But when she thought of Ouyang Feng's cruel methods, she could not help but gasp. His martial arts were much stronger than his nephew's and he was much more cunning. If they fell into his trap, it would not be good. Go Jing remained silent. Huang Rong tugged his hand, saying gently, "Don't tell me you want me to save that scumbag. You're worried for me, right? These two scumbags may not treat us well." Go Jing said, "You're right, but I'm worried about you and Master. Since that old poisonous thing is a head of a sect, what he says has some credibility." Huang Rong said, "Okay, let's save him then talk. We'll plan as we go along." They turned back and saw Ouyang Feng standing in the water, supporting his nephew. He saw the duo coming and his eyes glinted and it was obvious he wanted to kill them. He said roughly, "I told you to leave, why did you return?" Huang Rong sat down on a stone and laughed, "I came to see if he's dead yet." Ouyang Feng snapped, "So what if he's dead? So what if he's alive?" Huang Rong said, "If he's dead then there's no use now." Ouyang Feng jumped out of the water, hastily saying, Good lady, he's not dead yet, you must have a way. Say it quick." Huang Rong threw the straw over and said, "Put it in his mouth and he won't die." Ouyang Feng was happy and jumped into the water and stuffed the thing into his nephew's mouth. The water had already covered his nose and he was exhaling the last bit of air, but his ears could still hear their conversation, so when the straw reached his mouth, he breathed hard and felt comfortable, and he momentarily forgot about the pain in his legs. Ouyang Feng said, "Quick, hurry, let's connect the ropes." Huang Rong laughed, "Uncle Ouyang, you want me dead to accompany your nephew, right?" Ouyang Feng started and thought, how did she hear what I said? Huang Rong laughed, "If you kill me and then you meet some trouble later, who's going to help you?" Now that Ouyang Feng was depending on her, he could only pretend not to hear her and went to work on the tree bark. They worked for more than 2 hours and made an enormously thick rope nearly 100 meters long. The sea level was already up to half the rock. Ouyang Kang's head was a few feet under the water and only the tip of the straw was exposed. Ouyang Feng was still worried and occasionally stretched his hand under water to check on him. After another hour, the water receded and Ouyang Kang's head was slowly surfacing. Huang Rong measured the rope's length and shouted, "Enough, now I need 4 massive poles for the mass." Ouyang Feng was doubtful. He knew that on this deserted island, even a knife was hard to find, not to mention an axe sturdy enough for their task. He asked, "How do we get that?" Huang Rong said, "Don't worry, just find the wood first." Ouyang Feng was afraid she would throw a tantrum and refuse to help him, so he did not ask further but ran around looking for trees with thick trunks. He crouched down and gathered his strength and launched his palms at each of the trees. The trees fell after a few strikes. Go Jing and Huang Rong witnessed this powerful display of internal strength and shuddered. Ouyang Feng found a long and flat rock and he used that to cut away the tree leaves. Now Go Jing and Huang Rong tied the rope around 3 of the thick tree trunks and looped the rope around the large rock before tying the end to the final tree trunk. That trunk was a centuries-old oak tree, and even 3 to 4 people were not enough to circle the tree. Huang Rong said, "I guess this tree can handle the rock, right?" Ouyang Feng nodded. Huang Rong told them to connect one more thick rope, and they surrounded the 4 tree trunks around the rock, forming a shape and looped the rope around the top. Ouyang Feng praised her, "Good lady, you're really smart, just like your father." Huang Rong laughed. "But how can I be compared to your nephew? Let's start." They acted together and used the oak tree as the pivot to pull the shape formation. The rope became taut and the rock was lifted slowly. The sun was about to set and the sky was red, illuminating the golden surface of the water. The tide had already gone out and Ouyang Kan's body was in the mud and his eyes were fixed onto the rock. It moved slowly and steadily with a creaking sound, causing him to be anxious yet happy. Though the rope had made one complete turn around its loop, the rock had only moved an inch and it was already causing great strain on the pivot. Although Ouyang Feng did not believe in divine intervention, he was silently praying throughout the process. Suddenly the rope snapped and the rock slammed down onto Ouyang K again, and he tried to scream but no sound came out. The rope flew up and hit Huang Rong, throwing her off her feet. Go Jing quickly helped her up. At this stage Ouyang Feng lost all hope while Huang Rong could hardly smile. Go Jing said, "We can join them back and add another rope and try again." Ouyang Feng shook his head, "That would be harder, the 3 of us aren't enough." Go Jing mumbled to himself, "If only someone would help us." Ouyang Feng got angry and snapped, "Obviously." He knew Go Jing had good intentions, but in his depression he vented his frustrations on him. Huang Rong thought for a while then jumped up, clapping and laughing, "Yes, yes, there's someone who can help us." Go Jing asked, "Who might that be?" Huang Rong said, It's just that Brother Ouyang would have to bear with more discomfort and wait for the tide to come in again before he can be set free." Ouyang Feng and Go Jing both looked at her thinking, "Are you thinking that when the tide comes in, someone will come to our aid?" Huang Rong laughed, "We're all tired and hungry. Let's find some food." Ouyang Feng said, "Miss, you said someone will help us, please explain." Huang Rong said, "At this time tomorrow, Brother Ouyang will be free. From now I can't reveal the secret." Ouyang Feng saw that she had great confidence in herself and his doubt decreased. But he was still skeptical, so he simply accompanied his nephew. Go Jing and Huang Rong caught a few wild hares and cooked one for the uncle and nephew, then they shared the rest with Hong Shigong. When Go Jing learned that the trap was laid by her, he was surprised and happy. They knew that now Ouyang Feng was with his nephew and would not bother them, so they only lit a fire at the cave entrance to prevent any wild animals from coming in, and they slept very well. The next morning, Go Jing saw a shadow at the entrance, so he quickly jumped up. He saw Ouyang Feng standing there saying, "Is Miss Huang awake?" Huang Rong was already awake, but she pretended to be soundly asleep. Go Jing whispered, "Not yet." "What is it?" Ouyang Feng said, "When she wakes up, invite her to save him." Go Jing said, "Okay." Hong Shigong said, "I let her drink the 100-day drunken stupor wine as well as hit her sleeping acupoint. Within 3 months, it's hard to wake her." Ouyang Feng started and Hong Shigong laughed heartily. Ouyang Feng realized that he was joking and became angry. Huang Rong sat up and laughed, "If we don't tease the old poison now, when will we get to do that?" She then combed her hair and washed her face extremely slowly and then went fishing and catch rabbits for breakfast. Ouyang Feng paced up and down several times just like a pan of ants of fire. Go Jing said, "Wronger, when the water rises, will there really be someone to save him?" The Wang Rong said, "What do you think?" Go Jing shook his head, saying, "I don't really think so." The Wang Rong laughed, "Me neither." Go Jing was startled, "So you lied to him?" The Wang Rong said, "Not really. When the tide rises, I'd have a way to save him." Go Jing knew that she was very intelligent and resourceful, so he did not question further. They then went to play around the flowers. Huang Rong had no companions since young and always played on the beach at Peach Blossom Island by herself. Now that she had Go Jing with her, she was extremely happy. They played and laughed endlessly on the beach. The Wang Rong said, "Brother Jing, your hair is terribly messy. Let me help you comb your hair." They sat together on a rock. The Wang Rong took out a small golden jade comb and combed his hair finely, then sighed, "Why don't we think of a way to get rid of those two poisonous creatures and then we'll live here together with Master and not leave this place? What do you think?" Go Jing said, "I was thinking of my 6 masters." The Wang Rong said, and father too." After a while she said, "I wonder how's Sister Mu doing now? Master has also asked me to be the leader of the beggars clan, so I'm starting to miss those beggars too." Go Jing laughed, "Looks like we have to think of a way to get back." The Wang Rong finished with his hair and tied it up. Go Jing said, "The way you comb my hair reminds me of my mother." The Wang Rong laughed, "You can call me mother." Go Jing smiled without replying. The Wang Rong tickled him and asked, "Aren't you going to say it?" Go Jing laughed and jumped up, messing his hair again. The Wang Rong laughed, "Fine if you won't say it. You think no one will call me mother in future? Sit down." Go Jing sat down and Huang Rong wiped his sweat away and kissed his forehead lightly. She thought of the previous day's fight with Ouyang Feng and remembered that Go Jing praised her dog-beating skill, so she wanted to teach it to him. Huang Rong saw that his martial arts improved a lot and was actually more excited about that than her own skills. Since she was Huang Yaoshi's daughter, she had access to all the wonderful martial arts skills from young, so she did not really pay attention to other wonderful skills. Just like a rich man's son would not bother about gold or silver. But she thought, this skill is meant exclusively for the beggar's clan leader, so I can't teach him. She asked, "Brother Jing, do you want to be the beggar's clan leader?" Go Jing said, "Master wants you to be the clan leader. Why do you ask me?" The Wang Rong said, "I'm a young girl, I don't resemble the beggar's clan leader. Why don't I give up this appointment to you? With your commanding appearance the beggars will listen to you. Besides, when you become the leader, this marvelous skill will be yours." Go Jing said, No, I can't be the leader. I'm not intelligent enough even to handle small matters, not to mention important matters." The Wang Rong thought he was right, though Hong Shigong had no choice but to make her succeed him during this crisis, but he must have known that despite being young, she was very intelligent and probably no less capable than the 4 elders, and he also did not give her permission to give this responsibility to someone else. Not every silly boy who knew the 18 dragon subduing palms and dog-beating skill could become the leader. So she laughed, "Okay, fine, but I'm afraid you can't learn this skill, then." Go Jing said, "There's no difference between you and me knowing it." The Wang Rong heard that this sentence came from his heart, so she was touched and said, "When Master recovers I'll return the appointment to him." Then she wanted to say then we can get married, but somehow the words could not come out of her mouth. She asked, "Brother Jing, do you know where our baby's from?" Go Jing said, "I know." The Wang Rong said, "Where?" Go Jing said, "When people get married, they have babies." The Wang Rong said, "Yes, I know that too. But why will married people have babies?" Go Jing said, "This I don't know." The Wang Rong said, "Me neither. I asked father, but he said they crawl out from nests." Go Jing was about to ask more, but they suddenly heard a sharp voice saying, "Making babies? You'll know when you grow up. The tide is rising already." The Wang Rong gasped and jumped up. She had not expected Ouyang Feng to be listening to them. Although she did not understand male-female relationships, she knew that saying such stuff is embarrassing, so her face turned red and they quickly ran to the cliff. Aoyang K had been under the rock for 24 hours and had been suffering much. Aoyang Feng kept a straight face and said, "Miss Huang, you said that someone would come to help when the tide rises. This is not a joke." Huang Rong said, "My father knows the changes of the 5 elements, so his daughter would of course know a bit. Although I can't compare with him, I can still predict a bit of the future." Aoyang Feng knew about her father's abilities, so he said, "Your father is coming?" "Splendid." Huang Rong paused, then said, "Such a small matter won't need my father's presence. Moreover, if my father knows that you hurt my master, he won't let you off. Including the 2 of us, how can you win? So what are you happy about?" Aoyang Feng could not argue and remained silent sullenly. Huang Rong said to Go Jing, "Brother Jing, go get some tree branches. The more the better." Go Jing agreed and went. Huang Rong mended the rope which snapped the previous day with more bark. Aoyang Feng kept asking who was coming, but she just hummed some tunes without replying. Aoyang Feng was dissatisfied, but when he saw Huang Rong's relaxed expression, he kept up his hopes and went to help Go Jing. He saw Go Jing execute the 18 dragon subduing palms and only needed a few strikes to bring down a sturdy tree. He thought, his martial arts are good. Coupled with the 9 yin manual, he spells disaster for me. He decided that he had to extract his nephew dead or alive. He crouched down between 2 trees and then sent out his palms simultaneously, and each palm hit a tree, causing them to break. Go Jing was awed and said, "Uncle Aoyang, I wonder when I can reach your standard." Aoyang Feng did not reply but thought, "In your next life." They carried all the wood to the cliff. Aoyang Feng looked out into the sea but did not even see the smallest speck of a sampan. Huang Rong asked, "What are you looking for?" "No one's coming." Aoyang Feng was surprised and angry, raising his voice, "No one?" Huang Rong said, "This is a deserted island, no one will come here." Aoyang Feng was flabbergasted and could not speak, only waiting to kill someone. Huang Rong did not look at him directly but turned to Go Jing, saying, "Brother Jing, what's the most you can lift?" Go Jing said, "Around 200 kilograms." Huang Rong said, How about a 600 kilograms rock?" Go Jing said, "I think not." Huang Rong said, "How about a 600 kilograms rock in the water?" Aoyang Feng realized it and yelled happily, "Yes, yes, it's correct." Go Jing however had yet to understand it. Aoyang Feng said, "When the tide rises, it half submerges this rock, causing it to be lighter. Let's do it again and it will definitely work." Huang Rong coldly said, "Yeah, but the trees will be half submerged too. How are you going to work underwater?" Aoyang Feng bit his teeth and said, "Leave that to fate." Huang Rong said, It doesn't have to be so difficult. Go tie the branches to the rock." When she said that, Go Jing understood too and cheered, working together with Aoyang Feng and began tying several large branches around the rock. Aoyang Feng was afraid that the buoyancy would not be enough, so he tied 7 to 8 large pieces of wood together, then helped Go Jing connect the rope that snapped the previous day. Huang Rong stood aside and smiled, watching them work. Within 2 hours, it was all ready and they only lacked the tide. Go Jing and Huang Rong went to accompany their master. In the afternoon, the tide started to rise and Aoyang Feng ran up to inform them and the 3 of them went down together. After some time, the tide had reached its highest and they stood in the water and looped the rope around the oak tree again. They then operated the shape mechanism again. This time with the pieces of wood tied to the rock, the buoyancy was very high and it seemed like there were many strong men helping to lift the rock. The 3 of them did not need much effort to move the rock. After turning a few rounds of rope around the coil, Aoyang Feng held his breath and hugged his nephew up to the surface of the water. Go Jing saw that they were successful and could not help but cheer. Wang Rong too clapped continuously and actually forgot that it was she who laid the trap.